Okay, this is our third meta-analysis. However, this one is published in 2011, which means if you recall the FDA box warning on testing, genetic testing, was in 2010. So I think this is basically in response to the black box to the box warning from FDA. So they want to provide more evidence. We're going to, after 5 meta-analysis reviews, I'm going to do a guideline, but remember, this is our third review on Plavix and CYP2C19 genotyping in terms of its Plavix effectiveness with those who are poor metabolism. So this one was published in 2011. It's the year, so give it a little bit of context, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration recommended that CYP2C19 genotyping be considered prior to prescribing clopidogrel, which is Plavix, but the American Heart Association and American College of Cardiologists have argued the evidence is insufficient to support genotyping. Testing is also very important. If you remember the second review we did, those who were on PPI also had the same effect as poor metabolizer. So there are confounding factors, have not yet completely teased out what was the cause of it. So it's very difficult to say. And so this is CYP19 genotyping type, clopidogrel metabolism, platelet function, and cardiovascular events. And it's consistent with our PICO question, right? To review that, our PICO question, those who has CYP2C19 loss of function genotype will have a poor outcome when they give the clopidogrel for either treat post-MI or stent insertion, or to prevent future cardiovascular event and a stroke. So those are our questions. And then let's dive into these. So the objectives here is to appraise evidence on the association between CYP2C19 genotype and the clopidogrel response through systematic review and meta-analysis. If you recall what we said about Prisma review, searching for items, then they searched from PubMed, in base, and from the inception to October 2011. If you recall, as we said, Plavix was manufactured in 1997. So it's really not go that far anyway. Study selections, studies that reported the clopidogrel metabolism, platelets. So those are probably the keywords they used. We're going to see what are the keywords they used. Platelets, reactivity, clinical relevant outcome, cardiovascular disease, CVD event, and the bleeding. Bleeding is a side effect of Plavix or clopidogrel, and information on CYP2C19 genotype were included. Extraction from on the study design, genotyping, and the disease outcome. Those all fit into our PICO question, right? So this is the result. We retrieved the 32 studies, and this is, by the way, it's published by JAMA. We retrieved the 32 studies of 42,016 patients reporting 3,545 CVD events, 579 stent thrombosis, which you consider as the CVD, which you consider is platelet is not working, and 13 bleeding, which means the platelet has too much platelets sometime. So 6 studies were randomized trial, effect modification design, and the remaining 26 reported individuals exposed to clopidogrel treatment-only design. In treatment-only analysis, individual with 1 or more CYP2C19, if you recall, the first we talk about Aeneas, if it's 1, it's normal function. If it's asterisk 2, asterisk 3, they are loss of function. So depend on the mix. They can be 1, 2, they can be 2, 3, they can be 2, 2. Associated with the lower enzyme activity at the lower level of active platelet metabolism lower active clopidogrel, which is the Plavix metabolite. As we said, Plavix is a prodrug. It has to be activated by CYP2C19 enzymes. Less platelet inhibition, lower risk of bleeding. Because that's, if your platelets, if the drug is not working, not inhibit platelet, therefore less risk for bleeding and a more cardiac event. That's the prediction there, right? So here they said that the odds ratio here is 0.84. 0.8, if you recall, the ratio, if it's 1, it's the same, right? If it's less than 1, that means they're less, that basically said that the risk is not there. 95 percentile confidence interval. Absolute risk reduction of 5 to 8 events for 1,000 individuals. And high risk of CVD event ratio here, these ones appear to be a little bit increased high risk. And the confidential interval here is 95%. Absolute risk increase of 8 to 12 events per 1,000. That basically is their interpretation of it. It increases some. When analysis were restricted to study with 200 or more events or more, the point estimate was attenuated. You can see again, this become not significant. In effect, the modification study CYP2C19 genotype was not associated. That's the conclusion here, right? Well, not associated with the modification of the effect of clopidogrel on CVD endpoint without bleeding. P is greater than 0.5 for interaction for both. They're not significant. Other limitations include the selective outcome reporting and the potential for genotype misclassification due to the problem with the asterisk Aeneas nomenclature for cytochrome enzymes. Conclusion, although there is an association between the CYP2C19 genotype and the clopidogrel responsiveness overall, there was no significant association of the genotype with the cardiac event. So these are here again, they were talking about the FDA in 2010, the recommendation, the box warning issue. And let's see how they do their search. Remember, this class is about how you analyze it and how you do. Even one day you will publish meta-analysis. So this is how they did it. Following guidance from the Human Genome Epidemiology Network on gene disease associated studies and the reporting of a systemic review from Prisma. If you remember what we talked about, the Prisma is the item that research item they've identified that is through systemic review and a meta-analysis. We searched PubMed in base from their inception to October 2011. The search term used here, drug name, which is Plavix, Cadabral, and the clopenides. Metabolic enzymes, including CYP2C19, and the gene, they used that's the gene, genetic genotype, right? And to identify study describing association of category therapy with responsiveness of Plavix, with those people have a CYP2C19 loss of function. Let's take a look at the chart to see how many studies they got. They did not put a chart. So let's see how they identify the CYP2C19 genetic variants associated with reduced enzyme function. Here's Astra 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the 1 is considered as normal. So if they have 1 or 1, they have a 1 is normal. If they have a 1 and the 17 is considered as a gain of function. So they are hyper function. And that is going to have an opposite effect comparing with the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? And so those are the ones they determined. The genotype, that's what we decide. And let's take a look over the results. So we identified 32 studies including 42,016 participants, 29% female with a weight mean age of 63. So we're going to take a look just to get it into this meta-analysis. Okay. Okay. So they really didn't say how they got to 32, but we assume they did the Prisma. That's how they finally reached the 32, meeting the eligibility for the study. So here is the author's name, the year of the study, outcome measured pretty consistent. The CVD, MI, ST, elevated MI, death, stroke, and some of them have a bleeding outcome here. So let's take a look of the samples they have. Let's take a look of the samples here. They have with the first study, for example, the participants in the PGX sub-study number percentage here is 1250, and it's 100% in the PGX. They have the genotype and the Plavix treatment. Okay, so this basically said what data each of the study they have, and they summarized here. And the genotype they have is abstract 2 to 17 is a gain of function, but 3, 4, those are all loss of function except 1, right? And again, 17 is gain of function, gain of function, gain of function. The rest, all the 2, 3, 5, 4, 5, those are loss of function. And let's take a look of their findings, because we already know by reading the summary that it is not significant. And you can see we talked about the forest plot. Here, you can see it already. It's all over the place, right? And so basically here is those people, they're all on, what do you call it? They are on Plavix. And this combination of 2, 4, 2 to 8, those all, we call them loss of function. And this 1 is normal function and the 17 is a gain of function, right? So now you can see, for example, this is not significant because the line here is 1, right? The dotted line here is 1. And for most of them, let's say this one is cross the line of effect, cross, and this is okay. This one is, but you see more of not so good, right? It's not effective. And here is between the event between 1 to 99, and then between event from 100 to 199, this is even higher. And again, they're still a little bit all over the place, right? And greater than 200, they all definitely more on this side. You can see the pooled results here. That's this one. The pooled result here is right on the line of effect, which means it's not significant. And on the other hand, it's not on the other side. If it's on the other side of 1, that means it has increased high risk that you don't have. So this is basically using 32 studies, meta-analysis. The result is pretty clear that its results is very inconsistent. The heterogeneity is 40%. It's not bad, and overall 60. That's in a way say the study design have a lot of differences. So 60, relatively speaking, is not so great. But as we talked about heterogeneity, if it's 0, then that's the best, right? But here it's not that great. And the meta-analysis with the genetic studies, they plotted a second time. It's again is risk ratio, and you can see the study. It's leaning towards on the other side. That therefore, they again, as we said, that the study was none of these is really give consistent findings. So here it's again between 2 to 8, those are all we said the core function. 1 or 17 is a gain of function. So this is a loss of function group on this side, right? And it is talking about the all cause of mortality, mortality less than 100 event, and this has stent thrombosis, stroke, and bleeding. With the bleeding, you actually see it's on the other side because the bleeding, if they have a they are poor metabolizers, they're not having enough platelets in their body. Therefore, this is more on the left side. And here on the right side, but even on the right side, the touch, the line of effect, therefore, it's not not significant here. So this is basically, it's a study argue against giving genome testing. Before we prescribe Plavix for people use the Plavix either post MI or post stent and or using it to prevent a stroke and a future heart attack. Yeah, none of this you can see is consistent. No matter how they plot it, they tried a different way to plot that. So this is basically the study argue against. And we're going to talk about the guidelines, why American Heart Association and the American College of Cardiologists on not recommending the genotype for Plavix therapy. Okay, this is our third review. If you have any questions, let me know.